Hey there YouTube, my name's Roman, and in today's video we're going to talk about where you should stash your emergency savings fund so it's there for you as a safety net when you need it. Let's get into it. I hope everyone's doing well today. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the Wild Frugal Free family. I post new videos every week about personal finance, frugality, financial independence, and being intentional with your money. If you're into that sort of content, make sure that you click the subscribe button below and turn on notifications. Last week we talked about why you should have an emergency savings fund and how much you should have saved up in it. And I'll put a card, if you haven't had a chance, go ahead and check that video out. This week we want to discuss where you should park that emergency savings fund so it's available for you when you need it. Three things are going to be important here: liquidity, security, and ease of access. We'll talk about a few places that you could stash your emergency savings fund and how those different options stack up against those three criteria. You want to keep your rainy day fund somewhere that's liquid. Liquidity refers to how easily you can convert something into cash that you can actually use to cover an emergency expense. For instance, the money that you have invested into the equity of a home or property is generally not going to be very liquid. That's not always the case. Tune in to the end for a quick discussion on an idea from Mr. Money Mustache on this topic. Money that's invested into a stock is relatively liquid in that you can sell it and generally get a hold of the cash within a day or so. However, there are some other factors that means that stocks are really not the best place to put your emergency savings fund, and we'll talk about that later. Another option is certificates of deposit. Now, usually these are intended to be left untouched for a specific period of time, called the term. However, we will discuss how these could actually be pretty liquid as well. Cash, or money that's deposited into a savings account or money market account, is going to be your most liquid option here. On top of liquidity, you want to make sure that your money is safe and secure so that when you go to use it, all of it is there for you. While stocks do provide the potential for earning a return above and beyond what you're going to get in something like a CD or a money market account, the fact is that you don't know when emergency is going to arise, and for that reason, if you put your emergency money into stocks and an emergency comes up, you might be forced to sell those stocks at a point when the market is at a dip. In fact, it could actually translate to a loss for you. This means that stocks aren't a very safe place to put your emergency savings fund. Let's talk about paper cash as well. While paper cash is very liquid, it's more easily lost or stolen than money that is deposited into a bank. For this reason, money that's in a savings account or money market account or even certificate of deposit is going to be considered safer than any of the other options. Lastly, let's talk about ease of access. When an emergency happens, you might need to get at your money rather quickly. We already mentioned that cashing out stocks can take a little bit of time, and you're locked into whatever the price of the stock is trading at that time. Not ideal. Of course, money that is in a savings account or money market account is going to be available to you immediately. Depending on the terms of your certificate of deposit, it could actually be pretty easy to access these funds as well. But if you withdraw earlier than the term, sometimes that comes with an early penalty. So you want to be sure that you understand the rules of your CD before you decide to use this option. That said, considering our three criteria and dependent upon interest rates, traditionally a CD has been my favorite place to park my own emergency savings fund. Often you can find better rates of return on these funds than you're going to have available to you in a savings fund or a money market fund. However, that's actually getting harder to find. And for me, I actually like that there's a small barrier to access on my CDs. In my case, if I cash out my CDs, I'm giving up 90 to 180 days worth of dividends to pull that money earlier than the term. However, I'm never going to lose the principal that I put in, and if I do need to make an early withdrawal, generally, even with the penalty, I've come out ahead in comparison to having put the same amount of money into a savings account that makes much less. This penalty does make me pause and reflect about whether or not something is actually an emergency. If it is an emergency, I can go ahead and pull my money from my CD and have it available to me within hours, if not minutes. Our family currently has some of our emergency savings fund parked in certificates of deposit through Navy Federal, one in each of our accounts, that is earning about 3% annually, which is far and above what you're going to get in a savings account. Now, it's getting harder and harder to find these special rates. If you're also affiliated with the military, you may be eligible to open a Navy Fed account, so I'll drop a link below for that. They run awesome specials pretty often. At one point I had a certificate of deposit that was giving me a guaranteed return of 5%, something that I haven't been able to find since. As I said, finding certificates of deposit like this are becoming more and more rare. However, if you can get into something like this, it's going to keep up with inflation better than a normal savings account, which means that your money won't be losing as much purchasing power over time. If you can't find a CD with a better rate, then of course a savings or money market account is going to be your second best option. Any brick and mortar bank is going to be able to open these accounts for you. However, I would urge you to also look at online HYSAs, that's high yield savings accounts. Because they have less overhead online, some institutions are able to offer increased rates of interest for their customers for these accounts. I've personally used an HYSA through Ally Bank in the past, and I was earning something like 1 to 1.5% during that time, whereas my savings account was giving me less than 0.5%. I'll throw a link down below to a tool that'll help you look at what the current rates are so that you can compare some of those HYSAs yourself. A cool added feature of these accounts is that you can keep it separate from your normal banking, meaning you'll be less likely to touch it. And you can decide whether or not you want to forego the ordering of a debit card that's attached to this account. If you did forego the debit card, of course, then you would need to transfer money from the online savings account back to the account that you actually use on a daily basis. This could take around 24 hours before you could use the money. For me, the strategy there would be to charge the expense on my credit card, and then as soon as the money's available in my normal banking account, I can then pay off the credit card. However, I wouldn't suggest this for anybody who isn't ultra disciplined with their credit card and already never carries a balance. As said before, investing money that is intended for emergencies is not, in my opinion, the best idea. If an emergency comes up, you're going to be forced to sell at whatever the prevailing price is. Now, that could actually end up in you having lost money and not having enough to cover your emergency. My general rule of thumb is if I'm gonna need money anywhere within the next 5 years, then I don't invest it. I put it somewhere where it's safe. There you have it, a CD if you can get a good rate. If not, a savings account or a money market account with the best rate that you can get. This is where you should stash your emergency savings fund. It's not fancy, it's not glamorous, it's not flashy, but it's liquid, it's safe and secure, and it's easy to access, so you'll have your money when you need it. Now, there is a strategy that involves tapping into your home's current equity that I do find interesting. I was made aware of this strategy via a blog post by Mr. Money Mustached, who is famous in the financial independence community. For those who already have a solid financial footing who want to look into negating some inflation risk with their emergency savings fund, I'll go ahead and link that article right here. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this strategy for many people, and in fact, this is not a strategy that I would follow myself at this time. I do see the merit in the reasoning behind this method, and technically it could be financially optimal. However, if you're not interested in extreme optimization of your finances, a simpler option is just going to be a certificate of deposit or a savings or money market fund. Question of the day, where do you or are you going to put your own emergency savings fund given what we've talked about in this video? Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. If you got any value from this video, please do smash the like button below. That will tell the YouTube algorithm to show this video to more people so we can start to spread the word of financial responsibility and intentionality, which ultimately is the goal of this video and this channel. So I appreciate your support there. If you haven't already, go ahead and sort out your relationship with that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to ding the notification bell. I really do appreciate you joining the Wild Frugal Free family and for supporting the message that we're putting out here. Until next time, I hope that you have a great week, and don't forget to put your money where your values are. Bye, folks.